What's up, everybody? Tom Pelissero here with Judd Zulgad after the Vikings' third preseason game, 23-17 loss to the Dallas Cowboys. Judd, the first string offense only gets one touchdown,
right,
and a field goal,
right,
but 4 drives of 51 yards or more. They were able to move the football, and for the first time, we got an idea, I think, of what Bill Musgrave wants this offense to look like.
And Tom, I think that's the key thing. We talked about that last week. What is this offense going to look like? Is there a vertical threat? Is Bernard Berrian that guy? Tonight we found out that they're willing to take shots down the field to Bernard Berrian. And you know what I think the most important thing was? We learned that Donovan McNabb trusts Bernard Berrian. He's going to throw him the football. What did not happen the last 2 years? Brett Favre didn't want to throw Berrian the football. If McNabb will throw Berrian the football, it's going to loosen up the defenses, it's going to back them off the line of scrimmage, and it's only going to help Adrian Peterson, who's the focal point of this offense.
Well, let's not forget last year, you didn't see Bernard Berrian competing for the football. The Miami game in this building will always stick out to me. The game where I think there were 3 interceptions. They were all intended for Bernard Berrian. All sorts of jump ball opportunities, which never is going to be Bernard Berrian's strength. He's a vertical speed receiver. He needs to run by people, catch the ball in stride. He almost dropped the touchdown tonight. But even when McNabb gave him some other opportunities, you saw Berrian going up and competing for the ball. That, to me, was a more positive sign than the fact that when the Cowboys blow a coverage and a guy's interception go through his hands, Mediu Williams style, that Berrian can catch it. The fact that he's out there competing, he caught a comeback route, he caught a deep out, you see him doing a few different things. That, to me, would be a positive sign for the Vikings.
I think the issue last year, though, was Bernard Berrian knew that Brett Favre had no faith in him. You go back to the game against the Saints, the NFC Championship game. To this day, Bernard Berrian is still open on the sidelines at the Superdome, and Favre won't throw him the ball. And if you remember, the interceptions last year that Favre threw against the Dolphins for Berrian, I remember one in particular was a fade pattern that was a Sidney Rice pattern. It was run for Sidney Rice. And Favre almost said to him, you know what, Bernard, you go get this one. Tonight what we saw is McNabb throwing deep to Berrian. It's a vertical threat. Instead of trying to force Bernard Berrian to be somebody he's not, I think the chemistry between those two is so bad, and this is not an excuse because Berrian had a bad year, there's no question about it, but I think those two were not on the same page at all. These two are, and it's imperative that they be on the same page.
Well, and I always will put blame on Brad Childress and Darrell Bevel to an extent as well, because if Sidney Rice go down, he's a different type of receiver than Sidney Rice. So rather than leaving Bernard doing what he does well and plugging the guys in at the Rice spot, they tried to have Bernard in the Sidney spot. They tried to have Harvin go to play Berrian spot. There was this ongoing mess. If there's one thing that Bill Musgrave seems to have gotten, it's find ways to do what your players do well and find different ways to disguise it. That's the other thing.
And Eureka, isn't that interesting that there is finally a staff here that actually wants to use its offensive players to their strength?
Now, again, we've seen one regular preseason
game. But you know what? I think we can safely say that, Tom, because we knew in training camp
it's a different mentality.
Yes, it's totally different. But the key thing that we learned tonight, and we knew this going all along, is that this is Adrian Peterson's offense.
Yes.
There's a lot of parts around it. It's an interesting offense. I think it could be more productive than I thought it might be initially, but it is Adrian Peterson's offense. Adrian Peterson is the focal point, and they are not going to get away from that no matter what happens.
Look back to that first drive. It's 5 Adrian Peterson runs and a check down to Jim Kleinsasser, and then they go deep. They eventually draw him up. They catch him in what I think was a cover 1 look where you've got the corner playing outside leverage against Berrian. He shows a corner, runs a post. You get the single safety up there who is in position to make the play. He doesn't make it. If you can get some of those plays, if you at least can have that threat, that at least is going to make teams. Nobody's going to over-respect it. Even when you had Sidney Rice and that offense operating at such a high level in 2009, teams still accounted for Adrian Peterson. They always will. The more you can draw those guys up, though, the more opportunities they're going to be downfield. They need Berrian to make more of the plays like he did tonight. And honestly, with a guy like Berrian who is high and low emotionally, a play like that honestly could really help him just
but that's my point about last year.
Outlook.
My point about last year is Bernard Berrian got down. Bernard Berrian knew Favre didn't want to throw him the ball. He knew he wasn't favored in the offense, so he got down. And athletes are like that. If Bernard Berrian thinks that McNabb has faith in him, you know what he's going to do? He's going to compete. Now, something that you pointed out in the game, too, was all the different formations that Musgrave used. And that was interesting because, as you pointed out, too, what this is going to do is it's going to create problems for defensive coordinators because they're not going to know exactly what's coming, right?
Basically. And what you see is you don't see them running a ton of different plays, but you run in different personnel groups and different formations and then either motion into more familiar formations or leave the guys where they are and just run that exact same play. It's blocked up a little bit differently, but the way that they're scheming right now, they seem to be able to make teams, you're right, wait till the last second to try to identify and declare their doubles. Instead of seeing the offense going to the line, and in Brad Childress' offense with Favre running, you'd have Favre coming up to the line, and he's making 5 different checks. I can count on one hand the times I've seen Donovan McNabb walk to the line and audible. He tried it once tonight, and it was a mess, and they ended up having to call a timeout. But instead, you see them changing their formation before the play, the defense being the ones who have to move around, and when the defense is going to bring a blitz, when they're going to play either zone or man coverage, the way that they adjust, when you see the linebackers banjo a certain direction, Donovan McNabb is smart enough that he can pick that out. It's something that every team in the NFL does, but we've seen a lot more with this offense already in the preseason than I ever remember seeing it with Childress.
And Schenko didn't play tonight, but we certainly saw use of 3 tight ends.
2 and 3 tight ends a lot, which
including
is going
the bunch formation. How about that? I've never seen that before. A bunch formation to the right with 3 tight ends
all to one side. Again, because that's a running personnel group. You see those guys come to the line, you're thinking, okay, 3 tights, this is a run play. So you're out there in your base defense. Now they split those 4 guys out. Now you're wondering if it's a pass play. And what do? They come back and run a zone left run, and they have one of those guys kicking across on a backside cutoff block. When you do those sorts of things, you figure out what you do well, and then you figure out different ways to present it. And if that, in some ways, is going to be enough to keep certain teams off balance, but it also has to be a constant evolution, because if you're consistently running the same sorts of things, trying to beat teams the same way, defenses are going to catch up to you.
And I know that on Thursday night, when the Vikings play their preseason finale against Houston, they probably will not use their starters. I do think it's interesting, because we've talked about this before. Teams like to go vanilla as possible through the preseason, so when they open the season, they can catch clubs by surprise. But I do wonder if it was a smart move, and I think it was, by Musgrave and Frazier, to at least send a bit of a message tonight when teams watch this tape, because they will watch it, that, you know what, we can go downfield too. Here's what we can do. Because you know, I know, San Diego on September 11th knows Adrian Peterson's the guy. So I think it's an interesting move by Musgrave and company tonight to show, all right, Peterson's the guy, but if you put all your eggs in that basket, we will beat you deep.
And they tried to do it.
It's almost smart
in Tennessee, they tried to do it too, and they threw, I think, 2 or 3 balls down the field to Berrian, and he had the one where he kind of like fell out of bounds, didn't even really go up for the football. So did you learn much other than the fact that that safety for Dallas needs to get his eyes checked? I don't know that you did, but you have to be able to do some of that. They're hoping that Bernard Berrian's going to be that guy. Let's do the impressions on defense of this unit. You look at that secondary, and I made the comment to you during the game. All of a sudden, you have Winfield drop out with a shoulder stinger. He's fine. Chris Cook drops out with a hamstring. He apparently is fine.
Says he's fine.
And Cedric Griffin is still got 2 reconstructed knees. They throw at him 8 times, complete 6 of them for 50-something yards.
Dallas went right at him.
They went at him on the very first play with a quick one-step route. They continue to go after him. Yet the one that was concerning to me would be the play along the sidelines where Griffin's manned up in that case. It's a back shoulder throw to Des Bryant. Griffin never comes close to locating the ball. He's always been a better zone corner than he is a man corner. But when you see that, that's where you go, this guy's got a little bit of rust to knock off, and you wonder if there is, on some level, a little bit of a confidence thing where he's more worried about where the receiver is than where's the football.
You know what, though? He's probably going to be concerned about that for what? The first 5 games, 6 games. I mean, he's going to go through a period of basically trying to get comfortable again. The problem is, and we knew this last year, we know it this year, depth. Depth in the secondary is still a huge concern. If anything happens to Griffin, if anything happens to Cook, if something happens to Winfield, where is the depth? I know Marcus Sherrills has played well. I know Marcus Sherrills might make this team. But if you have to parade Marcus Sherrills out there on a regular basis in your nickel by, let's say, week 6, you're going to have trouble. You're going to have trouble.
You're in your nickel defense on 50 to 60% of snaps
all the
right
time
now in the current NFL. So you need that third corner. If one of those guys goes down, if it's one of the outside corners, if it's Cook or Griffin, who are far more likely at this stage to need some time off, Marcus Sherrills is the guy who's playing the best, but Sherrills is an inside nickel type of corner. You can't play him on the outside. So now you go, all right, are we going to put Sherrills in the slot and play Winfield outside where he can be exposed if he's got to play 70 snaps a game out there? Or do you take, and that also takes Winfield out of what he does well, or do you play Sherrills outside?
There's no depth.
The only other guy that can play outside is Brandon Burton, who has had an up-and-down camp, has looked like a rookie at times. He showed some positive things, I think, in Seattle, especially in the tackling aspect of the game, but do you have somebody you feel comfortable
with?
Well,
the problem with Burton, though, is if Burton has to play and teams see him on film, you're going to have trouble. There is just no depth there. There is no margin for injury or error.
If I'm an offensive coordinator and I just watched this game, I'm going after Cedric and I'm going after Chris Cook. Because Cook, I still think, has the skill set. He can be very good. But we saw it again tonight. I think it was against Des Bryant again, where Bryant gets an inside release. Cook's in fine position, and for some reason, Cook's, when he sees the ball go in the air, reaches out, grabs Des around the hips. You're going to get called for defensive pass interference.
Spins him around.
No matter what, yeah, even a little pull, you're going to get called for it. You have to trust your technique in that case. And with Cedric, you know, there's things you can expose him with. If you can catch him in a man-to-man situation, Cedric Griffin is not a guy who's going to compete very often in the NFL.
Cedric Griffin is not going to be back to being the player he was for a while still.
I think
it's going to take him a while.
He came back very well from the one last year. I thought he played very well in those couple of game and 3 quarters that he played before he blew out the other knee.
Still, the confidence is going to have to come.
Yeah.
Christian Ballard, by the way, taking the old Brian Robinson job now, playing in the nickel inside on the defensive line. This kid was a good pick. This kid impresses me.
A 4th-round pick. Now, both of his sacks have been, one of them was a blown protection, I think, against Tennessee. Yeah. The one today was Jared Allen, pushed the pocket.
But his energy,
was there to clean up.
I'm talking about
he comes with high energy. He
has
a very quick first step. You watch him in the one-on-one pass rushing drills. That was actually, he might have gotten Anthony Herrera benched for last week's game because he whipped him so badly in the one-on-ones during the week, just embarrassed him. Ballard is a guy who is going to be counted on, and if you look at their entire draft class, outside of Kyle Rudolph, the only other guy you could say is definitely going to make an impact this season, or at least is going to play this season, is Ballard.
Yes.
I can't name anybody else.
I think he's going to take that role that Robinson played previously, playing inside, on passing downs. Yep. Offensive line. Let's finish up with that because actually tonight Herrera was back at right guard. I thought they played okay. Charlie Johnson, who I've been very critical of, and obviously you'll go back and watch the tape, but Charlie Johnson, who I think we've both destroyed at times, they got away with it. They played all right. McNabb was under pressure, and I'm still very concerned about it if I'm the Vikings, but they didn't get him killed.
Well, and I'm also really curious to go back and chart the protections because I can tell you on that 7-step drop where he threw it to Berrian for the touchdown, they had 6 men in, they kept Kleinsasser in, and they had 2 guys chipping coming out.
But they're going to have to do that.
And that's what teams do in the NFL with when you want to do a 7-step drop and you want to throw the football down the field. But how often was Johnson really left alone on an island? I'm honestly not certain. I'm not smart enough to watch that closely. I can say this much. Anthony Herrera at least was competing. He doesn't look like he's back to me. He doesn't look like he's playing with that same power. They had him pull on one play and he just looked lost, was very slow coming across. That's something that's going to have to evolve. They think they can maybe push him to be ready for the first game. Boy, those 70 snaps, when you've only had a couple of weeks of practice and you're going to go out and play 70 snaps in a regular season game, I'd be a little concerned. It's always tough to rotate offensive linemen, but if I'm them, I'm at least
Do you have faith in Ryan Cook to start that game? Because that's where you're probably going to end up. Either DeGear or Ryan Cook, and DeGear did not play tonight. What, concussion?
Well, and that's why they want Herrera. Because the only other guy that had a legitimate chance that they saw was Scott Kushner, who played well in Seattle, and then he broke his neck. So they just don't have a ton of options there. No. They need to be able to patch that together. You still have the same issues up front. We saw it on another rush where McNabb got killed on that play late, which was Phil Loadholt gets beat outside, John Sullivan gets overpowered at the line. It's the same stuff that we'll see over and over. You just have to be able to cover up those weaknesses. So far, I think Musgrave has done a fair job of it. He's kept them out of bad situations. Every team's going to have some breakdowns along the line, but overall, you're right. The line held up okay.
Your potential unsung MVP for this season might be Kleinsasser. He's going to catch some passes, and his blocking, helping out with chips and things on the offensive line is going to be absolutely imperative.
Even at his age, he's one of the best blocking tight ends that there is in football. There's not a lot of guys you can put as a 6th offensive lineman, essentially, and block a defensive end one-on-one or release him out into the flat, and he will catch the ball for you. He's not going to make a ton of people miss, but he'll at least catch the ball and hold on to it.
Still need to find a left tackle somewhere, folks.
Eventually. It might not be this season.
Yeah, it might not.
He's Judd, I'm Tom. Full coverage at 1500ESPN.com. We will see you.